everyone, my name is Ben Selle and I want to welcome you to Booking Flights 101. Whether or not you've traveled a lot, booked a lot of travel, booked a lot of flights, the purpose of this presentation is to help you understand how to make some money when booking only flights. But one of the things I do love is the fact that I have traveled across the world numerous times. In fact, travel and flying specifically has been a passion of mine. You can call me an av geek if you want, which is basically a nerd for everything flights, everything airlines. I literally am a nerd and I know so much information that most people will never want to know. Having said that, I do love the fact that I get to share this information with you because there are so many things to know and a lot of great little tips to help you benefit you in regards to making money and also making sure that your clients' needs and expectations are met. So, one of the big questions that many people have is there a perfect time to kind of consider booking? Yes. Typically, the best time to look for travel deals as far as discounts go is between late Monday night and early Tuesday morning. That's when they kind of phase out on the weekly basis. As you get closer to the actual travel day, as many of you know, prices tend to go up. In fact, about 3 to 4 weeks out is when they actually start going up considerably. Factor in any holidays and any other travel disruptions and so forth. That just adds to the complication. As far as booking time of the week, Tuesday is the cheapest flying day. In fact, it's about average $85 less than other days of the week. The most expensive day of the week is Sunday, as well as Friday as a close second, depending on the time of the year. So that in mind, midweek, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are probably going to be your best bets for prices. Also too, is keep in mind, if it's on a specific day regardless, the cheaper flights are going to be the real early flights in the morning and or the late afternoon flights. The ones that are kind of mid-morning through the mid-afternoon and then red eyes tend to kind of be the more on the more expensive side. For domestic travel in the United States, it's important to know that the cheapest month to book for flights is around January, February. As far as international flights, the best time to look is around August. So kind of keep those in mind when you are booking, especially when your clients considering times of the year to travel, especially if they have flexibility, because for you, it's going to benefit you to know what to kind of, forecast, also to kind of help them understand why prices are going up, why they're cheaper here and why they're not here. In the United States, there are 14 mainline carriers, everything from, kind of Delta, Southwest, JetBlue. In fact, and we'll talk about this a little later too, we have 2 new airlines as of 2021, Breeze and Novello. Both still domestic airlines, but they are in the mainline route. One last thing with that, when it comes to airports, we will show some of these options later, but consider airports that are not necessarily the big hubs or the main ones, because if the client are willing to travel a little farther out and or don't have to go to a major city, it might be worth considering an airport that is smaller but not too far away. An example there is IAD, which is Washington Dulles. Major airport obviously for the capital, but if your clients are not too, keen on flying into there, maybe BWI, which is Baltimore. It's only about 30-40 minutes north, but it also has a big enough airport that there are a lot of flight options there, especially for those who travel frequently and want to avoid the Dulles craziness. But today, it's important just to have this kind of as your stepping stone, whether or not you knew this, just so that you have some understanding of what your clients are probably going to be looking for and which will benefit you in the long term when it comes to their satisfaction and hopefully repeat business. So again, as we had mentioned, when it comes to just booking flights with Archer, you do not get commissions. So what we're going to show you here in just a little bit is some steps how to go about doing so, the overview of airlines as to where to look, and then of course how to make some money. And the way you do make some money with regard to Archer is ideally through Rakuten. Now, whether or not you have Rakuten already or have a membership or an account, it's important that you find and get with your mentor to have them at least invite you so that you can get additional discount on there. Rakuten is a service that provides you with various vendors and this includes airlines, but also you can shop for pretty much anything on there at a discounted price, meaning you get paid out from Rakuten to go through them on their website. And we'll show you how to do that in just a little bit, but it's important to understand that although there are other ways to make money, when it comes to specifically only flights, this is probably going to be your best option. Flights do get included with regard to commission when it's through a vendor, as many of you already know, if booked in a package or in a deal when it includes hotel, car, or a cruise, or other things like that.
Flights overview is key before jumping into Rakuten. One of the best tools you have for that is Google Flights. Simply in your browser, plug in Google Flights, and hopefully you're taken to a page that looks like this. Today, I'm going to use an example for one passenger traveling between Los Angeles and New York City. Whether you're familiar with the New York's airports, there are three main ones: JFK, LGA, LaGuardia, and then EWR or Newark on the Jersey side. Now, only JFK and only EWR have nonstop flights between LA and the East Coast. Actually, there's one other airport, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But with regard to what we're looking at here today, I'm just going to do a round trip for one passenger. And all those information is something that you can plug in right here. And for the dates of Monday, January 9th to the 16th, so Monday to Monday, 7 days. When you have that plugged in, simply hit search, and then boom, here you have pretty much all the best options that they give you. I would suggest trying to focus on the non-stops only, so you can just hit that little option, and then you will see just how everything stacks up. Now we're talking about post-holiday, so flight prices are much more reasonable than they are prior to. But one of the ways to kind of see if things work price-wise is you can check out the grid, and this here is an option for you to kind of see if the passenger is flexible and to see what days are the cheapest. This is something that's flexible with regards to information, but also too, you can check out the price graph, and that just shows each day and kind of where the prices fall and are more expensive or not. These are just options you can play around with, but like I said, we're going to look at non-stop options only. Now for New York, just so you know, average there are about 16 non-stops a day between LAX and EWR or Newark, and then about 29 non-stops a day between LAX and JFK. So that's a lot. And so here we're just going to look at the options that are best suited. And you have so many times, basically everything from early in the morning to late at night. And though we are looking at Monday, it is probably going to be a little more expensive than if you did on Tuesday. So it depends on the flexibility of your passenger. And also it's key to point out that the preference of the airline that the passenger has, or their membership program affiliation, is something that you want to make sure you have with you prior to looking at bookings. In addition, you also want to get obviously their preferences as far as seating, airport, if they're rather flying to Newark or JFK is better. And either way, we're just going to choose one of these options just because the cheapest right now is the one daily nonstop on Spirit between LAX and EWR. So once you have that information and then you know where the prices fall, then you can jump to Rakuten. Now Rakuten, granted that you're logged in, will option up all these things that you can see as far as the vendors and stuff that you can buy. But with regard to travel, on their site, they have several different third-party websites that they help, and you can see just what the percentage is as far as what they pay out to you. Because again, any of these vendors on Rakuten, they pay you to use it and to go through it, but you have to stay logged into Rakuten. Also, we're just going to choose One Travel because One Travel is one of the better ones that has options for you. And so once you're in One Travel and you're logged in, we're going to take a look here and just plug in LAX to, now since we know that the newer option was the better one, we're just going to put that airport code, EWR. Too many things to ask to remember. We're going to go coach, just because unless your client is specifying, you probably just want to go for the cheapest. And though Spirit, the one that we're looking at, doesn't really have a first class, you're kind of stuck with what they got. But it is cheaper, so that's the winning point. All right, see flights only. And let's see. And here we are. So Spirit is the first thing that shows up with regard to the cheapest option, which is only one, and it's only $182. And you can see other airline options here on One Travel, but since we are looking at the one that we discussed earlier, we're going to select this one. Now, once you get to this page, this is where it's important for you to kind of remember that if you're logged in, you're going to get these little pop-ups of your points and so forth that you have already. These are mine. And for newcomers, you're not going to have much. So it builds based on time and the amount of stuff you book here. So anyhow, going back to the flight details, you want to make sure that these do work again with your client. So if it's Spirit, well, there you go again. As for other options, you want to make sure that, they know what they're paying for. Meaning you can see here what they include. In this case, personal item, that's included. However, a carry-on bag, they do charge, as with a check bag. So it's kind of, when you're paying less on Spirit, but then you're going to still be nickel and dime for all these other options. You can check whichever ones you want, but if they're not taking much, let's just pretend they're just taking a personal item. They can always check in later at the airport. You want to keep scrolling down, and let's say travel protection is an option that you want to suggest, just because you never know. And so we're going to click that, and then it automatically obviously pops up my information. You want to obviously make sure that your passenger or your client has all the details correct, and plug all that stuff in. And with regards, I'm surprised that Spirit is actually showing options for seat choices, but here you are. And the reason why this price is so much more lower, and we'll look at it, there's so many seats available, meaning that there's not a huge demand. So that's why you're going to find these options at a more reasonable rate. You can then go ahead and choose one of these things. Let's just say window. Wait a second. I forgot Spirit does choose with the flight as far as seat choices. So we're just going to skip this for now. Confirm my seat selections. And again, here we have, once you've gotten to this part, your options for additional coverage. If you want cancel for any reason, well, it really doesn't matter. I think on this little discount carrier, if it was one of the major carriers like United, Delta, or American, you might want to consider it. So they still offer a ton of other things. Support packages. You know what? None of this is necessary unless you have a very, shall we say, needy client or someone who requires a little more hand holding just in case something does happen. especially if someone is traveling with kids, a pet, requires any assistance like a wheelchair, who knows? But we're going to continue to payment. So once you have that page up, you can do several things. You can choose to purchase it right off the bat with information that you've gotten from your client as far as a credit card. But it's also key to remember that once you have all these options in, you confirm and book based on what obviously is not only available, but you know is going to be the best price. Now, Rakuten, which One Travel is under, once you're logged in, we'll link everything as far as, discounts and so forth. But if you go back strictly to Rakuten and you say One Travel, it's going to take you to the other page with the discounts that Rakuten offers. So it's important to remember that, because depending on which page you're on, if it doesn't remember, it's mainly because you're not logged in. You will want to make sure you're logged into both options as far as Rakuten and One Travel. So it's just reflecting the same information. And it's important to note that, as far as any discounts, any promotions, there are options. General tickets was $182.77. Travel protection that you included was $11.95, and then total $194.72. If you want to enter a promo code, just make sure you do that before you confirm the booking. And in this case, some of the codes that you want to consider from Rakuten or some other sites that have probably are going to be your best ones. And I'm going to list a couple here. Rakuten. Well, hold on. Rakuten. What is it? 60 is one of the codes that's very popular. Let's see if that applies. Applied. Congratulations. A discount of $10. And so another option is PayPal 60. Honey 40, Group 40. So all these things you can plug in to see which is going to give you the best discount. And in this case, this is only $10 because it's already so cheap. And what I had mentioned earlier, there are other places you can get codes as far as discounts with. One of those sites is Retail Me Not. And what that looks like is this, which is pretty much all your options as far as vendors, products, so forth and so forth. In this case, you can just look in, are there anything that applies to One Travel? And boom, here are all your discounts that apply to One Travel. You can, we already got the $10 discount, so it's kind of not necessary, but if you see something that makes a little more sense and or is probably more in the best interest of your client, this is where you want to consider it. And you just simply show the coupon code and you can click and copy. Once it's copied, you're going to have to go back to we're at One Travel. Sorry. I'm going to remove that code and let's try this. Paste. Apply. Travel 35. That code is not valid. So let's try one of these other ones I had mentioned earlier, like PayPal 60. Because it's probably all going to be about the same amount for this price discount. Yep, $10. Let's try the other one I'd mentioned, which is Honey 40. Believe me, I did not come up with these names. Not valid code. Group 40. And let's see, cannot be applied. So really it comes down to probably the Rakuten 60. And it's good to keep these in mind because it's not going to be a ton, but it's something more. So when you apply that, there you go. You see the $10 taken off again. Before you confirm the booking, there are ways to kind of split up this money if you want it right away, which means then you'd have to kind of split it with your customer or the client. And it's a little confusing to go there, but I would suggest stick with what you have once you have the codes in, once you have the discounts on, and then just book the flight. And it's important to keep your information or at least your email, so this all goes to you. And that way you can kind of control what you send out to your client later on, with obviously all the information from the site as well as the airline. And in this case, Spirit. So, speaking of airlines, and this is just one of many, and like I said, there's so many options flying between LA and New York. I just wanted to kind of touch on a couple of the newer airlines in the US system. There are technically 14 mainline carriers right now. In 2021, there was only 12, as in 2 new ones popped up. One of them being Breeze. And now Breeze is one of those rare airlines that actually has another option for a nonstop between LA and New York. Now Westchester, White Plains is just north of the city. The airport code is HPN. On most days of the week, they fly nonstop. So it is an option. But as you can see here, this relatively new airline has kind of a few options here on the West Coast. And from LA, it shows where they fly nonstop between LA and Provo, New York, and then Charleston. And then their hub on the East Coast, I believe here's Westchester, which is HPN. And they pretty much do a lot of the stuff down on the East Coast quadrant. The other airline I just want to touch on is Avelo, which actually, though new in 2021, was a charter aircraft carrier since the 80s. Now it's been rebranded and it just came out as a new airline. Primarily, they have, well, it's kind of weird. They have 2 hubs, one on the East Coast, one on the West Coast. On the West Coast, they fly out of the Burbank Airport, BUR, and they do all these little, jaunts up the side of the West Coast. On the East Coast, they're based out of, I believe, New Haven, Connecticut. So a lot of East Coast options and so forth. But I mentioned these airlines, Avelo and Breeze, because they're brand new in the sense that a lot of people don't know about them. And those sites like Rakuten and One Travel will show their options. It's important for you to remember because most people who are used to their American, Delta, Southwest, United, have at it, will not know about these airlines. So it's something to kind of keep in the back of your mind. This is an important thing, that all the information you have, all the details that you take from your client, not only match their IDs, but also their preferences and everything that they're looking for when traveling, whether it's a window seat, an aisle seat, how much you're willing to spend, as far as extra things like bags, carry-ons, check bags, you name it, because even some of these discount carriers, like I mentioned Spirit here, it might be cheaper, but if the moment you charge a bag, it's going to bounce it up to probably a price of what one of the main carriers has. So just kind of keep that in mind. And so with that, this is pretty much the booking section that will conclude. There's going to be more, but I can tell you right now, this at least gives you an idea to get the overall view when looking at flights on Google Flights. And then go to Rakuten and then choose the vendor there, ideally One Travel or one of the other ones, and then plug in that information, get all the details in, and then look for the codes and apply the codes to see if you can get anything further discounted. Other than that, just make sure everything matches up, be smart about it, and at least start being aware of where these airports are, because a lot of this is a little crazy. But like I said, I use this example for New York just to kind of reiterate the fact that they have 3 major airports. And so sometimes people think, oh, I'll just go here, but not realizing how far it is from the actual final destination, and or if they have to connect to another flight, whether it's international or domestic. All right.
In closing, I think it's important that if anything, you do listen really well to what your client's needs are. Because however you book travel, whether it's flights, whether it's a cruise, whether it's a package, knowing exactly what your clients are looking for and having that sense of understanding as to how they have traveled in the past will benefit you significantly. You always want to kind of have that mentality of being a few steps ahead, at least, of what their expectations are. And even though some of them might have been well traveled and you might not have been, at least information is there for you. And that's what we're here for, is to help you understand that there is so much information. And though you can get overwhelmed, you're going to start off perhaps being so. But in time, once you get through the process and keep understanding this, the more experience you have, the better. And don't hesitate to ask questions, especially on stuff like this, because when it comes to the details about bookings, whether it's domestic, international, there are people like myself who will know the best ways to go, where to look, which vendors to use, which airlines to use, which routes to go through, which parts of the world to consider flying through, which airports to consider, which airports to avoid. All these things that will benefit not just you, your client, but the overall business and everyone at Archer, because that's what we're here for, to do, to help you out to do better, because when you do better, we all do better. And at the end of the day, we're doing something that we love to do and hopefully do ourselves. And we know how to do it best, so we're going to help you do it just as well. So thank you so much for paying attention. If you have any questions, I'm going to drop my email on the bottom of this at the end. We're excited. We're excited to have you. Welcome aboard, if anything, and let's get flying together. Alrighty. Again, my name is Ben. Appreciate your time today. I look forward to talking to you all soon. All right. Bye-bye.